We're just going to call this the poor man's 2180, okay? It's a 2021, and then I'm going to go ahead and show you how I built it to this point. It was actually really easy. I'll talk to you guys a little bit later. All right, guys, before we start, I wanted to show you guys real quick what I did to this case. Let's see if I've done what I need to do. I have not tried to mock this up yet, but usually that's all that needs to be done. Let's take a look. So you can see right here, it's still got to be cleaned again one more time. I'm going to blow all this out. And right there, a little notch. That's all that needs to be done usually. Maybe you can see this one right there and right there. A little notch out of there. And that's about it. So I think you guys can handle that, right? I mean, it's really not much to do. So, and we'll put the crankshaft in shortly, and we'll check it, rotate it, and make sure that it doesn't hit those areas. But I figured I'd pre-do it because usually that's all it takes, if anything. Sometimes on the 90.5s, you don't need anything. You see, these rods have shuffle pins in them. That's what that is. And that helps the rod last longer. Right, a couple things I wanted to say. The camera ran out of juice right in the middle of this, so I don't know how far it got, but okay, when you pull these apart, sometimes there's on the edge of the rod, when you know where they machined the opening, a lot of times there's a little burr along the edge, and what I do is I'll take one of these little, I got a little fine file, and I'll just knock the burr off. Not going to hurt anything to do that, okay, because it's too sharp, and if it's too sharp, you know, that'll get hot, so that's not good. So I file those off, just a little bit, just enough to make them not, so you don't cut yourself, okay? And then when you're tightening up these rods, you notice they get real tight, okay? These rods, because of the shuffle pins, when you tighten them down, they get real tight. They'll start, you know, not moving, and then as soon as you torque them, they're perfect. And then just rotate them all around and just feel if there's any hard spots. You know, you gotta kind of double check these rods. You know, they're made in China, but they work fine. You just gotta know, you know, and sometimes in the tang, you'll feel like a sharp edge in there. I'll just take a file and just knock them down just a little bit. You're not changing anything. You're just knocking down the sharp edges. So I do that, and that's why all this goes together here real nice. And then the other thing is, I didn't have any ARP grease for this, but I just lubed the threads with the lube, and then the shelf right here where this part meets, a little bit of lube on there. So that's what I'm doing. You can do whatever you want on that. You should use the ARP grease, is what it says in the instructions, but you know, I'm sure this will work just fine. As long as it has some lube on the threads and on here so that it doesn't hang up when you're torquing it, should be fine. So anyway, that's the way I'm doing it. You do it how you want. Anyway, we're all ready to go set this in the case. I'm out of batteries here, so I'll bring you back in once I set it in. All right, so we were looking good on one side for the case, and I started to put it together. And these are the type of things that you do before you put it together, guys. You check whenever you have a thrust cut bearing, you want it nice and tight. If it's real loose, you got to just go back and bring a new bearing over there and have them redo it. So this one's nice on this side. So you got to watch this stuff, okay? There's all these on thrust cut bearings. It can be an issue. So, and how you can correct this. So if you look on the bearing, what sometimes you'll do is, you know, you're talking about 0.010 of an inch. So you can get a razor blade in here and just scratch off just a little tiny bit if you have to, just to get it to fit a little bit better. But I don't want to take any more off of the other side. Check this out. So the other side of the case was, I mean, slightly on the looser side, but still really pretty good. And on this side, I mean, it is too tight. I tried putting the crankshaft in just a mock-up. That's why you do mock-up, you guys. And it would pinch right here. I don't know if you can see that. Let me put you down where you can see. Here. So I was putting it together, and it was pinching this back bearing. And then I tried to take it apart, and it wouldn't come apart. So I don't think it's the surface here, because I put it in both ways. So I put it in, okay, let's say I ran the other side of the case. This has the hole, right? The other side would have the hole. This one doesn't. I ran that side of it, and it's just as tight. So apparently when somebody did the machine work on this case a long time ago, the thrust cut, I don't know how it worked out, but it was a little bit off. Okay, so this is slightly thicker. So what I'm going to do, like it or not, do the same thing to the case, because, you know, it's just thrust, okay? So I'm just going to clean off just a, you know, take a 0.010 of an inch off of here. A couple tens, that's it. And then it should fit fine. Just scratch it off real carefully. I'll do this off camera because I need to have my hands in the right place, guys. So I'm trying to get a nice even thrust on there, okay? Take it off nice and evenly. Just a couple tens, and that's it. I'm showing you guys what you're looking for here. So you can see it hits right there, but when it's in the center, it doesn't hit. All right, so when it's kind of hard to turn because it's got assembly lube on it. But when it's centered, it will not hit. So if you look down there, let's get you guys close so you can see it hits. But when it's centered, it doesn't hit. So that's what you're looking for on the rods. And this is on the 74 too. They're the same. There's only one difference between the 74 and 76 is possibly the top of the case. Maybe we'll look at that. It could possibly hit the top of the case. It's literally maybe 10, 20 thousandths from the top of the case. So, but you know, that's not a real big deal as long as it doesn't hit. So we got to check the other rod. I've checked both sides. Just got to check the other rod. See on the bottom, let's see if I can get you guys a closer. There's plenty of space there, okay? So it doesn't even hit there ever, okay? But on the top is the one that's the most closest. So let's look at it. I know I got it. It's not that hard to do. I mean, there's not that much you got to take off. Again, you guys, it's the same thing. So you see it hits over here, but that's off center. So when it's centered here, you can rotate it around and it won't hit. So if you need to put your cylinders on, you can just put a nut on there and slide the cylinder back. You can look in there. That way you can got to hit the cylinder up a little bit, right? You can look in there. You can use a bore scope. So if you're doing a stroker, let's say you're going to do your own clearancing, you're going to do a 78.4, shouldn't be much different than this. Believe it or not. A friend of mine did one. It was not much different. I don't have these completely torqued, but they're tight enough to where, you know, it's 2 or 3 thousandths difference. At least I thought it did. So let's look again. It's right there. That's where it would hit. Rotate it around. I got to do this with a screwdriver. I had the wrong flywheel, so I got to return that. Yeah, it's hitting right now because you use 2 hands. And 74 clears a lot easier. You know, it's just a little bit of difference. I mean, really not that much. So anyway, let's take it apart. I'll show you the other areas that possibly could hit. I mean, it depends on the case. So most of them are fine. I've had a friend of mine check. He checked 3 different cases with a 76, and they all were about the same. So, but it, you know, doesn't mean they all will be the same. You just got to check it. All right, so here's the other place right here. You can see. So if you had a 78.4, you might have to clearance right here. And all you do is just mark that with a Sharpie and just cut a little groove out of there on both sides of the case. Not hard to do, again. So you might have that issue with a 78.4. I don't know what they are because I've never put one together. Well, I haven't in many years, let me put it that way. I know that we used to do them hand clearanced back years ago. The 78.4, these and this and the other ones, and it wasn't very often that people came in for that. So even the 82s, I think we even did those. I don't remember, but we might have done. I know we built 82s. We might have done it by hand clearanced. Nowadays, you just take it in, and they know right where to. They have like spots in the mill, right where they. I think they have a program in the mill where they just go and it just grinds all these certain areas, and then it clearances the case. So I think that's how they do them now. But back years ago, it was all done by hand. We just put it together, look at it, find the spot, grind it, put it back together. I didn't do it. It was other guys in the shop. I just was around it all the time, so I don't know. I didn't build stroker motors back years ago. But now it just makes all the sense in the world. More stroke, more torque. I mean, why wouldn't you want more torque? Torque is your friend for everything. Drivability, all that stuff. So 76, you know, is not going to hurt anything. It's going to be just, it's a few millimeters on each side wider than a stock motor. I mean, as far as the stroke goes. And when you use the short rods, it's like a millimeter wider than the stock or something like that on each side. I don't know. It's not much. So anyway, let's get on with this. I got to put the cam in here next. Putting the cam in, I got to check the cam bearings with this and make sure that they clear, because usually you have to sand them on a brand new cam the way it is. Got to clearance the cam bearings, and then check the oil pump. I always like to check the oil pumps with the cam in here before I put the case together, because then I can see if I need to clearance it. On the 36 horse, I had to clearance it. On this, I shouldn't, but I always check, because you don't know if those bolts are going to be a little bit too long. They could rub the end of the oil pump. You know, just check it, put it in, make sure all the stuff's right, and then we assemble. So guys go, oh, well, you just assemble them. No, I check everything. I'm just showing you guys more of it now because I don't have someone else here, so it's just I can do it myself. All right, so check this out. So you can see tight. No good. Gonna sand that bearing down a little bit. Give it a little bit of clearance in there. So let's do that. So we just need enough space for the oil to be between there. That's it. So not much. Not enough to even be loose. Just enough. Okay, for the oil, it spins freely. Put oil in this here in a little bit, but we got to put the gear on it. All right, guys, there's a couple things I check for. So I make sure I put it all the way in. Make sure it doesn't hit. Okay, make sure it doesn't hit. Now see how this is? Then I'll turn it. Make sure it drops all the way in flush. Okay. And then turn it here. So there's no way, because sometimes what you'll have happen is it'll stick out a little bit because it's hung up on the lip of the cam. You know, you just don't know. You've got to check it, you know, every time. And you know, look at this. I'll show you something. This is something that I noticed taking this apart, and I've got to take this back apart because I thought I might have to grind the bolts, because you have to sometimes. See those little grind marks there? Those didn't hit sometime or another? Yeah. So you got to check it, because a common thing that happens when you build an engine is these things will hit the oil pump. It'll shear the bolts off, and then the cam gear comes loose, and then you're done. The motor's toast. Now I'll reinstall these with Loctite. Remember, line up, back cam lobe down, and it lines up with the top bolt. You can't go wrong if you do it that way. That may be the reason why they put a 21 millimeter oil pump on there. Put a 26 for a dish cam, which would have came on a dual relief case. Would have had a dish cam, and they put a flat cam in it, probably put the same oil pump back in it, and it hit the cam and just went, oh, let's go to 21, you know. So I don't know why that stuff happens, but 26, this one's getting, I think, a 31. I don't know what this is, 30, 31, whatever comes in this kit. And it's bigger than, definitely bigger than a 26. I mean, I didn't measure it, but that's a big freaking gear. That's huge. Not today. All right, we'll go with the alternative method here. A lot of ways to do this, guys. I need to get my welding glove. All right, you know you did your job right. That one's hot, this one's hot, that one's in place, and the clip fits, right? Fits in there. If it's crooked like that, it ain't right. If it's straight, is that straight? Yeah, it is. All right, all these facing this way, little dowel pin hole there, and then this thing goes on like this. No, just messing with you guys. Goes on like that with the thrust forward, like that, and make sure the clip is all the way in the groove. And then we go ahead and put our last Woodruff key in and make sure it is straight. Don't make sure it's not like or especially this way. You can't really correct that very easily once in the case. If it's a little bit up, it's easier to fix. You can kind of get a punch in there and knock it down. But if it's going that way, like that, ooh, you are so screwed. You're going to jack up the case trying to get it straight. All right, I just set them in the hole, but let's put these in. Make sure they spin. A little dot of this on there. Right, before we put the case together, cam plug in place, bearings are, dowel pins are lined up, we've checked our bearing, forgot to show you guys that, good to go there. The other thing I always do on these, remember you don't have your markers, right? So that's why I mark the tops of these and these so that it's easier, because I can't see for crap. Those numbers are terribly stamped. So I've got this one up, this one up. I've already checked the other side, but I'll show you guys. What do you see there? Mark. And back here, a mark. All right. So all those are right. Our cam, well, it's in a weird spot right now. Our cam does a little, there's a little tough spot. Maybe somebody got a little not so nice to the gear. It wasn't me, but anyway, it'll wear in a little tiny bit of stuff like that. Won't matter. So we got looseness there, got our lifters in, got our other side lifters in. Didn't show you guys that. We're oiled. Other side lifters in. Checked our clearances for the rods. And that's it, guys. With a little bit of notch, and that's it. So now I've watched you guys glue this side of the case. It's easier to glue the side with no studs. Next time, just put your other case on something and glue this side. Much easier, and make sure you don't put too much around this return. Otherwise you'll have, I don't know what that'll cause, but we don't want to know. Anyway, glue it up, put them together using Honda Bond. Somebody said that they have a lot of trouble getting cases apart with this. I have never had that because this stuff does not dry like 100%. What was on here before was silicone. That sucks to take off. When you're trying to separate your case halves with silicone, not that it doesn't work, you know. I mean, some guys say, well, it's thickness and all that. Maybe that's no big deal, but it makes it really hard to get the case apart. You need to use a case separator and all kinds of stuff. I had to use that when I took this one apart. So we use Honda Bond. I use, they have a Permatex version of it. It's something like motorcycle case half stuff. I don't know what it's called. But this, or Yama Bond, one of those, to put them together. And I think that works the best. And it does come apart pretty easy with that. And it doesn't, like the stuff, other stuff you use, the Permatex number 2 or whatever, that's it, right? Permatex number 2. That stuff, it kind of, when it gets old, it sometimes starts to leak. This stuff doesn't. It just works. So anyway, let's put it together. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention, O-rings. O-rings on the case right before you do it. Double check all those things. Because on the 40 horse, you don't have them. And I think some of the 1500s didn't have them. So there's always that. Okay, so if you, and then these, you kind of get them straight. Let's see, get it like a top dead center. It's kind of hard to turn with this oil on it. And then get them top dead center and just kind of tweak them to the side for a second. They'll stay for about 20 seconds. And that's all you get. Gotta hurry. So I'll do that. I'll bring you back in. I forgot my lifter holder. I like it. That's what you call a tight zero. It's 2000s or something. I mean, it's, but I haven't got it tightened down completely to 25 foot, 24 foot pounds. So, I mean, it would probably come out to exactly 0. How about that? So on this one, you know, I got to check a couple others because we're running tight here. So that's great. You know, this is what I like about building strokers. Now you can decide, do I want all that fire in the head? Or do I want to shim it and have a little bit in the barrel? Or do split it and put copper shims on here and get everything again in the head? There's just endless ability when you run a stroker engine. You can't do this with a 69. It's, you get what you get with a 69. With this, you can, you know, you can decide. And I checked it, it's right at the very top. Yeah. So you can decide whatever you want to do. That's what's cool about strokers. And look at this right here. I mean, look at how thick that is on the thick wall 92s. You know, oh, those strokers, they run hot. Yeah, right. With that thick cylinder right there, that sucker is going to, if it gets hot, it's going to dissipate that heat. Like when you use one of those Cuisinart pans on your stove and it makes even heat all the way around. It's going to have even heat all the way around that cylinder. so it's not going to get hot spots in it, and that's what causes the piston failures, all that stuff. You know, these are just way better, guys. I don't know. I got people that still think 1600 is going to last forever. It's better engine. You know, okay, go ahead. You know, that's fine. Strokers, Porsche engines were counterweighted. These are counterweighted. Chromoly cranks. I mean, okay. Good luck with that. The thing about strokers, you guys, is to get power, it's so much easier. Even if you just don't go crazy with it, so it lasts a long time, when you have cubic centimeters, it's so much easier to get horsepower. And, you know, you don't have to put, you know, big giant cams in or anything like that. You got inches. Cubic inches equals power, equals torque. That's what's going to give you what you want. Torque is power down low. Cubic centimeters give you power down low. Easy. Tough decision. I don't know. Right, so I always put the piston rings in the cylinder, check the gap, you know, feeler gauge it. This one was at 9, so that's way too tight. I had to get the old trusty file out, you know, put them on here. I'm going to show you how I did it. So you can just, you know, like this, and just file off a little bit. And get them to about, on this one, it all depends on the cylinder size. You got to go by the 3.5 thousandths per inch. So this is 3.622 or something like that. So it's based on that. That's like 13 thousandths, 12.5. So I'm right there. So anyway, I'll start there. And then the other one was a little looser, which is fine. The second ring down, which is perfect. It was at 14. We're good. So anyway, I'll ring these up. I'll finish up all these, do them all the same, and then get these all compressed and clean. The packing oil that's in here, that's got to come off. It's got to get clean. And then I run my rings dry. Dry rings, a little bit of oil on the skirt. That helps them break right in immediately. Look at how thick that is, man. That's cool. I just oil all the piston pin bushings. All of them. All right, so there's an option here. I could do either way. I could go with 60 thousandths coppers on the head, between the head and the cylinder, or they didn't have any 60 thousandths shim, so I got 230s. So I could put 230s on the barrels, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with barrel shims and 30 deck on this. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm not driving the car. If I were driving the car, I would go with these. Okay? Because it doesn't happen very often, but there is a potential of the head coming loose. It won't happen, but if I'm driving it, I'll know. I know what the head coming loose sounds like. Somebody who doesn't, I mean, I drive behind guys and I'm like, dude, your heads are loose. And they're like, what? I don't know. I go, dude, your heads are loose. And you go down and pull the rockers and tighten up the bottom 4. Oh, are you sure? I go, yes, I'm sure. It's just that rattle that you just know what it is. They go, I thought it was an exhaust leak. No, it's not an exhaust leak. Your heads are loose. Okay, so rather than do that, I'm just going to eliminate the risk. It's probably wouldn't happen. Usually what you do is when you first start it, you run it once, okay? You run it through your break-in, and then these will shrink a little bit. And then you got to retorque the heads right after you do your first run. I'm just going to go with the barrel shims to eliminate that possibility. So anyway, on your own engine, I would do this. You're going to end up with all the fire in the head, you're going to have a better running engine, but again, it's up to you. All right, gotta put these in here. Put this gear on. A little lube on the shaft. A little bit on this thing. It's all going to get oil as soon as it starts, which won't be a big deal either way. But we don't want oil on the okay. Notice it went in. A little bit of oil on the shaft. A little oil on the gear. That's all it takes, just a little bit. It's a big gear, so I'm going to put a little more. There we go. Not too much, just enough. Alright. The gasket. Is that the right way? That's the right way. This one's got the hole. So it goes like this. Special gasket on this one. Got the return hole. Put it on there wrong, boy. No oil pressure. Alright, so we're good to go there. That's interesting. Probably have to cut the studs. We're not going to worry about the, oh, we gotta have the washers. Put some washers on. No sealing nuts on this one. I think we'll be fine. That shouldn't leak. Should not leak. Right, so anyway, I've got the valve geometry set up. I'll just tell you guys real quick what you're trying to do is you watch the angle of your lifter or your... So I got the wrong... I forgot I have to get the 40 horse head studs for these because it's the 10 millimeter. What a pain in the ass. I don't know how I'm going to find those, but I guess I will find them somewhere. So anyway, I've just got this mocked up and I just put some nuts on there. That's fancy, isn't it? So I could just do this and then just to check everything. And one of the reasons I like to build a stock width motor, I mean, this is 60 thousandths off of stock, right? And it's only 60,000 shims in here. Is then it avoids me to have to sometimes buy cut to fit push rods. I'm only using a 110 cam, so I don't really need to have, you know, chromoly push rods. You know, I like the chromoly ones. I have some chromoly standard ones. Maybe I'll use those. I don't know. But I just put it together with these so I can look at it. And then so I ran it down. It's 430 thousandths. That's as it always is. That's what the cam spec is. 430 lift, right? 430 thousandths lift. And I ran it all the way down, and it is 430. It's never angle usually is pretty spot on. And then I ran it back up half of that, so it's 215, right? That's half. So then I've looked at it right here, and I'm really, really close. I mean, it's within. If you're using stock push rods, usually when you know you're way out, okay, is when you don't have any adjuster left or the adjuster sticking way out, something like that. Usually it's the adjuster won't adjust it, you know, and then you have to use cut to fits. But usually if it's in the adjuster area, it's usually pretty close. And I mean, it's a half a degree or degree out, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. I don't need it exactly perfect. Probably never was to begin with. And when you go to cut your push rods, a lot of times, you know, you go put it together and you put the push rod in and you check it again and you're like, oh, shoot, still a half degree off, you know, because when you cut them, you didn't cut them exactly perfect. And like everybody usually doesn't. So anyway, that happens. And so if you run stock width motor, a lot of times you end up with decent valve geometry. It's not far off of stock. You can use stock length push rods instead of having to buy those expensive cut to fits, and you know, it saves you a few bucks. So if you want to do that, but they have the stock length chromoly ones too, which I have a set of those. So I could run those if I wanted to. I haven't decided yet, but I just want to see where I'm at, kind of. So that's where we're at right now. I'll get the other side put together, and then gotta find the short ones. They're going to be hell to get out of there too. Sometimes they are. But yeah, and I did port the heads just a little bit. Just open them up a little, clean them up. That's it. That's all she's getting. Deported them a little bit. These heads you really don't need to. These OE heads are really nice. I mean, if you guys didn't know, the stock, I don't know if these are stock valve or a little bit bigger than stock, but the OE, they're really pretty nice heads for an inexpensive head. They're pretty damn nice. You know, they're made in China, I think. You know, you can tell by the aluminum that they're, you know, have that bright shiny stuff. So, but they are really good heads, and the chambers look good on them. A lot of good stuff about these. So yeah, I like them. So anyway, and a lot of guys I saw in the Samba, they like them too. So anyway, pretty cool. All right, there it is, guys. It's going to do it for the long block here. Still need the studs. Hopefully I can find them. Need the shorter head studs for the dual port. 10 millimeter. Those are going to be a little hard to find, I think. All these fit really tight, but I still wire them just in case they come loose. It's not worth it if that thing falls down and makes your engine overheat. But the cool tin are really good. These are actually from Type 3. That's all it is. You're not reinventing anything. You're just using other stuff that's out there. So they're Type 3 tin. These have a metered hole in them. Okay, and the Type 3, the problem with the Type 3 is it didn't have enough airflow. So they had to do something to make it run cooler. So they put these on it. Because remember, your Type 3 had the fan back here and was pushing the air up into the cylinders. By the time it got there, it was going pretty slow, and maybe the fans, didn't put out as much CFM of air. So they put these on here as a precautionary thing. But this is my theory on this. That was adequate for the cylinders on a Type 3, right? Okay, where does your heat come from in a VW? The heads, right? All the fire, especially when you try and zero deck it or try and get all the fire in the heads are doing all the work of cooling the engine. So, and that's where every car, the head temp is always the hottest part. Cylinders have a maximum, temperature that they get to, and they're not going to get the heat as much. And that's why the fins are bigger up here, smaller down here, because the head, towards the head is where all the heat is. So this will meter the air going through here, right? And then the remaining air will go through the head, which there'll be more air going through the head, which will make the engine run cooler, especially when you have these side deflectors and all that, to really help the air get all the way around the head, all the way around it. So the earlier model, or the Beetle, had the little deflector plate in here. And remember, it had the tin that went down and around, and that was to kind of help it go around there. But where they got hot was right at this stud here and right at that stud there, where the air, didn't get around, and then the top of your piston would burn, okay, because it doesn't going all the way around the cylinder. These things, I think they do a better job. Even though Volkswagen had a bulletin out that says they didn't work. Of course, they didn't want to taint themselves, right? If they said that, oh, these work better, well, why didn't you put those on all the cars? Oh, well, lawsuit. Okay, well, that tells you why they did that. So that's my opinion. And a lot of guys have proven this to work. I mean, especially on your bigger engine. And these are the ways you get one of these bigger engines to run just as cool as a small one. Plus, it's not working nearly as hard. My biggest engine is a 2007. This is a 2021. But, this is about the same. There's not much difference. And the difference is my 2007, on that I have 40-35 heads. We went with stock valves on this. I think it should work out fine. Okay? Should work out okay with the smaller valves. And the reason I didn't go with the big valves, because that thing starts to flow a lot of air through those heads with the big valves, and it'll get the exhaust super piping hot, where I think this will be okay with the inch and 3/8. I think that's what it is. I mean, the extractor is 1.5 inches, but I think the heater boxes, I don't know, maybe they look bigger than a regular heater box. So I don't know. It had this car with all the same stuff on it, had a 2180 in it, so it can work. It had a 2180 with single carb on it. So it's the valve size, I think, is where you run into the issue of the flow. So anyway, guys, we'll get to the rest of this. You see the pulley here. We're going to be putting some more dress-up stuff on this. This is an exposed engine. So I'm not going to put the back tin piece here. There's no reason for it. And there's nothing back here in the car. It's almost like a Baja. It's not a Baja, but it's gonna, you guys are going to trip out when you see the car. So it's going to be, it's interesting. And it's a car that's been around since, oh man, since I was a kid. This car has been around. So it's got custom paint. This whole engine, he's doing something to it. I don't know what he's doing. So when we get the engine tin from him, we will see what this looks like. And then we're going to put some, aluminum valve covers on here. The tin's going to be custom painted somewhat. I don't know. He's going to do something pretty simple. And then the car, when I actually put it in there, you guys are going to trip out on that. It's very different. It's not what you normally see. It's something you wouldn't see probably for the last 30 to 40 years. So it's different. So anyway, this is going to be exposed engine. So we want to make it look dressed a little bit. So that's why I went ahead and got this, degree pulley for it. And forget what else, the valve covers I've got. And then we've also got the breather system that's exposed right here. When I put the whatever hoodie on there, yeah, when I put all that on there, put the alternator and all that on, and then just going to have the breather system exposed in here. And then I'm going to try and tie the hoses in, make them look really cool. Just, nothing, I'm not going to go crazy on it, but, I want it to look good. So anyway, and then I'll cut all these studs off once I get all the holes plugged up. And before I put that pulley actually on physically, done. So anyway, we're going to do it. I'll talk to you in the next one. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video.